Thank you so much, Mark. And hello, everyone. I've missed being with you, so really happy to be with you here today. So as we are entering this final week of Av and moving towards the month of Elul and the season of tshuva, of returning, of awakening and renewal, I want to offer us a teaching today on compassion and belovedness that is sourced from our mystical tradition, from the Kabbalah. And the way that compassion and belovedness is connected to our intuitive wisdom, which is both one of the fruits of our practice and also something that guides us on our way. So you might be familiar with the Kabbalistic map of the tree of life. And on the tree of life, which is it's like a map of our universe in microcosmic and macrocosmic ways. And so in the tree of life, which can also be a map of our own being, there are two poles of wisdom, two kind of energetic centers, sephirot, that represent wisdom, and they're opposite one another, called Bina and Chokhmah. Bina and Chokhmah. So you might perhaps be more familiar with Chokhmah from the word Chacham or Chachamim, like wise one or wise ones. We often refer to our sages as Chachamim, wise ones. And yet counter to Chokhmah is Bina, which is also wisdom. But it's more the intuitive faculty of wisdom, the wisdom within us that is beyond concept. It's perhaps not a wisdom that expresses itself in words. It's an intuitive, embodied wisdom. Now, in this tradition, in this map of the tree of life, the light or the wisdom, the illumination of Chokhmah, which is connected to our cognitive understanding, is likened to a seed. It's a seed that implants itself into Bina, which is likened to a womb. And from this womb of Bina, holding that seed of Chokhmah, that seed of divine illumination and awareness, from that womb of Bina, the world is born. Don't worry if you didn't catch that. It's, again, we're going into this realm of Bina. It's really actually beyond the cognitive, but that's sort of the metaphor here. Now, in this tradition, in our Hasidic and Kabbalistic tradition, there is a teaching that when we encounter harshness in our lives, or deen, that kind of quality of harsh judgment, our task is to sweeten the judgment at its root. Sweeten the judgment at its root. Rav Yitzchak Morgenstern, who is a contemporary Kabbalistic teacher in Jerusalem, teaches that this sweetening the judgment at its root means returning to Bina, means meeting that experience in such a way that we can return it to the womb from which that experience is born. And you might know that in Hebrew, the word womb, rechem, is connected to the word rachamim, compassion. So in Hebrew, when two words share a shoresh, a root, it's a clue that there is something essentially similar about those words, meaning that there's something fundamentally compassionate about the womb, this dark, mysterious, very deep place within which life gestates, from which life emerges, is born. Or that there's something fundamentally womb-like about compassion. That when we awaken compassion, when we can hold our experience with compassion, it's as if we're embracing that experience fully and completely, allowing it to receive nourishment, to gestate in some mysterious way that we can't perhaps fully comprehend, and giving it the space and the warmth and the nourishment that it needs to evolve, to emerge, to be re-enlivened, to be born again. Rob Morgenstern also teaches that Bina is the world of return, the world of teshuva. And so I want to suggest that in the context of our spiritual practice, this instruction from our mystical tradition of sweetening the harsh judgment at its root might mean that when we encounter harshness or difficulty in our experience, moment by moment, we can envelop that experience in that womb-like quality of compassion. We can hold it there, trusting whatever happens in that divine and mysterious place of darkness, of depth, for however long it needs. And it might need that holding for a while. It might need that compassionate embrace for a while. We don't really know, right? The womb is also like the soil. We plant a seed in the dark soil in the earth, and we don't put a timer on it. We don't dig it up to see how it's doing. We don't control that process. We do everything that we can to create the right conditions. We offer nourishment, we offer water and light. And then we let the soil, the earth, do her mysterious work. We allow that seed to sprout in its own way, in its own time. And so this holding, this enveloping, this meeting our experience with compassion is a kind of tshuva. It's a kind of returning. It's returning to our intuitive wisdom, to that womb of compassion that exists deep within our consciousness. And so today I'd like to invite us into a practice of rachamim, of compassion, and sweetening the harshness or sweetening the judgment at its root, meeting our experience with compassion, with rachamim, with bina, with intuitive wisdom. And so I invite you to settle into a posture in the body that will be supportive of mindful presence, that will be supportive for you in awakening to this moment as it is. Settling into the body, you might just notice if there's any tension in the body, any holding. And you might invite the body to soften, to relax. Allowing the attention, the mind to rest on an anchor in the body, perhaps the breath, the sensation in the hands or the feet. Just allowing the mind to settle on an anchor, allowing the attention to settle here in the present moment. Our practice today is the practice of returning to this present moment. Noticing what is arising, what thoughts, what emotions, or physical sensations. And inviting in that quality of compassion, of rachamim, meeting whatever is arising with that womb-like embrace of compassion, which is loving kindness in the face of suffering. It might be helpful to imagine someone who evokes for you this quality of love. Perhaps a memory when you felt met in this way or held in this way. That steady embrace of love that is here to hold whatever is emerging. Fully and completely. And it's totally okay if you don't feel it. The practice isn't feeling it, but actually inviting it, turning towards it, like planting a seed. And if it's feeling difficult for you today to hold your experience with compassion, you might imagine that you are held in this quality of womb-like compassion. Perhaps even just feeling the earth beneath you, steadfast, holding you. Or imagining that there is a divine embrace holding you in this way. For the last few minutes of our practice, I invite you to connect to that place of intuitive wisdom, Bina, within yourself. This is a wisdom beyond concept, beyond words, just a sense of inner knowing. Perhaps arising as a felt sensation, or just a subtle place of quiet within. Is there an inner knowing to be felt? Conclude our practice with a song. Loving you is the best thing that I choose to do. I love you. Loving you is the best thing that I choose to do. I love you. We so love and love sows us. So we know love and love knows us. Yes, we grow love and love grows us. Sets us free, sets us free, sets us free, sets us free. Ooh, loving you is the best thing that I choose to do. I love you. Ooh, loving you is the best thing that I choose to do. I love you. We so love and love sows us. So we know love and love knows us. Yes, we grow love and love grows us. Sets us free, sets us free, sets us free, sets us free. That's by a person named Guy Grizzly. Thank you so much for your practice today.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Friends, we seal that practice, beautiful practice today, by offering an opportunity. Any of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site at this time, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, you're welcome to do so. And if you're not, we encourage you to stay present for those who are. offer your compassionate support. If you're reciting Kaddish, you'd like to put the name or names of anyone you're honoring today in the chat box, you're welcome to do so. And either now or after you recite the mourner's Kaddish. Thanks to Jet Bachman for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. And if you're reciting it, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yit Gadal, Rabba, Rama, Dira, Kirite, Yalik, Malkute, Chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uchaye, Dechal, Beit Yisrael, Ba'adalah, Bizman, Kariv, V'Yimru, Amen. Shei Rabba, Mibarach, Olamei, Amayim, Barach, Babath, Har, Yidamam, Yidaseh, Yitadar, Yitalev, Yital, Shemed, Ela, Minchol, Birchatav, Shiratav, Birchatav, V'nechatav, La'amam, Yimru, Shmarabba, Min Shemaya, Chaim, Aleinu, Amen. Aleinu, El Kol Yisrael, Shvei Tevel, Yimru. Amen.
Amen.
And friends, thanks so much for joining us today. Wishing you again a Shavua Tov. Thanks to Jet Bachman for holding our tech space so beautifully, as always, and to Pat Scala for sponsoring our practice today to honor 44 years with Corey Weinstein, and Mazal Tov to the two of you, Pat and Corey. And thank you so much, Pat, for supporting our practice together and sharing the joy. Deeply appreciated. Of course, as always, you're welcome to stay on. You can just use this time and space in our community as a container to continue to sit if you'd like. You can just turn the volume off or down on your device, or you can join us for some conversation about Rebecca's beautiful teaching for today, or share reflections on your experience with the practice in the chat. If you have a question, please preface it by writing question in all caps, and we'll try to keep an eye on that. If you're leaving us, we hope you see you tomorrow. And Rabbi Dr. Amir Neshama Weil will be leading us in practice tomorrow. We'll look forward to that. And Rebecca, thanks so much. I'm sure someone's going to ask again for who wrote that song. So why don't we get that out of the way first? That's okay.
Yeah, I actually don't know the name of the song. Maybe it's "Loving You." By Guy Grizzly, and I don't know if there's a recording of it online. I learned it recently from a friend.
All right. Well, we'll turn everyone loose on the internet. Go find it. Okay.
The recording will be there on YouTube of this.
Yeah, sure. That's right. That's right. You can always. It might be the only one. It'll be amazing.
Right there. Mute, not mute.
There we go. Okay. So, I mean, it was a really beautiful teaching, and there's a lot there to, I guess, to reiterate, I think, for clarity, because there were a few concepts you were describing, which, can sound esoteric and hard, but basically, just want to just repeat that. So, sweetening judgment at its root is one, which is a concept in the Jewish mystical tradition. And then there's also, you raised, you were describing these kind of two poles of wisdom, Chochmah and Bina associated with this quality of Rachamim and Rechem and the womb. And then you layered onto it this image, which I thought was such a beautiful image of sowing a seed, of the sweetening, the judgment, and comparing it to sowing a seed in soil that is nourishing and that requires some, I was going to say trust, but I was really taken that you were describing it as intuition. And to me, like, one of my takeaways from this sit is adding to my vocabulary for that kind of realm of faith and trust, intuition, which I'm not sure if it's distinguished or different than trust or faith, but it's accessible in a different way. It just sort of acknowledges that there's a part of us that has a way of knowing that is not, that is, I'll let you describe it anyway. So, and what is it we know? We know that that our experiences have a root, and that they're held in this place of compassion. And so it can be easier to come back to that place. Anyway, those are my cliff notes on your beautiful teaching. I just want to invite you to expand on any of that, or correct me if I got any of that differently than you intended.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So one thing just to acknowledge, as you mentioned, sometimes these Kabbalistic teachings can feel quite esoteric. And as I was preparing this teaching, I was really trying to present the concepts as simply as possible. And there's much more, they go into much more detail, which can be fun or really confusing to try to understand. But what I love about this teaching in particular is that it really is, again, as you mentioned, pointing us towards the experience of Bina, which is that intuitive wisdom and knowing that actually is not conceptual or cognitive.
Right.
And just to name again that if you didn't quite grasp it on the cognitive level, that's actually okay, because that's not really the point with this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's about connecting to the possibility of a knowing, which is intuitive. And it's really a source of extremely powerful intelligence that should not be understated.
It's knowing, but what is it? No, can you like put a fine point on that? Knowing what?
Knowing what?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it doesn't and can't necessarily be communicated in words, and is something that is personal and individual to each person. It's something to discover. It's a sacred question, right? I think, and I talk about this a lot, especially in my work in education, this comes up just all the time, that just the truth that our society tends to value a certain kind of knowing and a certain kind of intelligence above all other forms. And that is cognitive, conceptual knowing and intelligence that is communicated through words and rationality, which is extremely important. Extremely important. That's more that realm of chokhmah, in my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
They're not totally separate. None of this is totally separate. They're all totally integrated. And our society tends to devalue or even ignore, or at worst oppress and squash the other kinds of intelligence and knowing that are actually innate, that are embodied. Some of us have the gift of being able to articulate our knowing. And others of us, you might know people like this in your life, or you might be one of these people. I know many people like this in my life. My sister is one of them. Like, some of us can do that also, but the real gift is just a kind of wisdom and compassion that is just embodied. It's just felt. Maybe it comes through in just the way that they listen, or the way that they laugh, or the way that they respond just with a hand or with some love. There's a deep wisdom there that doesn't necessarily need to be understood or communicated in words. And in my own life, I had this intuition, this kind of wisdom has been such a powerful source of guidance for me. And it's something that I'm really interested in helping people connect with. And it's very quiet. It's very quiet. It's that still small voice. It's deep inside. I want to also say that the metaphor of the womb here is not something that is accessible only for folks who have a womb in their physical body. It's a metaphor for a place within our consciousness as beings that are alive.
But there is, I guess, when I was saying knowing what, in my mind, I thought, well, there's an obvious answer, and I really appreciated the silence and saying, can't really say the answer here. But what I was thinking is that your association with the womb, that association of intuitive intelligence with love. I mean, that's where you led us, right? It's not a neutral place. It's a place of warmth, nurture, and love that wants to, that is a place that is a condition that is conducive to aliveness, right? It's not a neutral place. It's not just a whole, it's not just a container, it's a loving container, right?
Yes, not just anything has that womb-like quality, not just any space has the capacity to bring forth life,
Right.
or for a seed of life to really gestate and be nourished and be held. And I think, you know, the quality of compassion and love is so clear there, right? And also it's a place, the womb is a place of like infinite and ultimately completely mysterious creative potential. The way that life is born is so divine. It's so mysterious. And maybe that's why, you know, I'm also just uplifting the kind of ineffable quality of this kind of knowing, because maybe it's not meant to be grasped, actually.
Yeah. I want to bring it actually connected if I can, because I know probably many people are reading Alan Liu's book or participating in, you know, your Getting Real for a New Year, or the Shofar Project Getting Real for a New Year, because he describes, I think, this place or state or consciousness as a void or nothing in a lot of the book. And he does also speak about love and compassion, that there's a quality to that void, that no thing out of which everything emerges. I don't think he uses, maybe he does, I'll have to look again if he uses the terminology used of rechem, womb, and rachamim, but he definitely ascribes the quality of compassion to it. It's a loving, it's not like a great unfeeling, hostile, you know, neutral or hostile void. It's a loving, affirming, life-giving, and forgiving place, which is why this is topical, you know, as we move to this part of the year. It's a question from Lester, maybe you know this. He says, in Kundalini yoga practice, the focus for intuition is the third eye between the eyebrows. And Lester is wondering if our tradition puts the focus somewhere. So if you were to think about where in the body, you know, for you anyway, I don't know, like where you would recommend that people bring their attention. What do you think about that?
So that's so interesting. Yeah, I'm not so familiar actually with the Kundalini tradition or the yogic tradition of I mean, the chakras are also can be mapped onto the Sefirot and the Tree of Life, and it's interesting to like see how they play with each other. Those two, there is a lot of overlap. And when the Tree of Life is mapped onto the human body, Bina and Chokhmah are up here, I think, with the eyes. I'm not about that, but I think they are. For me personally, and I think this is something for you to explore for yourself, for me personally, I'm connecting to my embodied intuition. Actually, it's not so helpful for me to be focusing up here in my body because this feels very like conceptual mind. But actually really focusing on that area of the womb space, which is like really the gut, right? The solar plexus. Like people talk about having a gut knowing, because that place in our body, again, whether or not you have a womb, that place of the gut is an incredibly intelligent place, and it is totally connected. You might have noticed this in your own experience. Our digestion is actually very connected to our emotional life, to our mind, to our whole body. It's something very important is happening in that area. And actually the gut is considered in science, actually, like another brain. I think it has even more neurons than the brain does. So there's a lot of intelligence down there.
The gut.
And that's a beautiful place. In my practice, in my own meditation practice, I've actually spent quite a lot of time using my gut space, my solar plexus area, as my anchor for my attention, even like really resting my awareness there. Because for me, that place is a very like intuitive. That's kind of where I can access my felt sense of intuition.
Yeah. Thank you. That's actually incredibly helpful, and I think for a lot of us, probably fairly new idea. Well, we have less than 2 minutes, so, but I do want to, I'll just raise the question because I see it's coming up a lot in the chat. There's a lot of wonderful stuff in the chat, by the way, and a lot of appreciation. Struggling with compassion for others, you know, who are maybe not treating us well or challenging in different ways. So for practice, when we are thinking, you know, this idea of sweetening judgment by bringing it to its root, to its source, to its womb, what about a thought about somebody who, you know, we're struggling with, I'll just say, putting it that way, challenging thought about somebody else, how do we
Yeah.
sweeten that thought?
Yeah. So if it feels, if someone else is challenging us in such a way that the compassion actually feels inaccessible, I don't think it's wise to force it. It might be a sign actually that we ourselves are in really more need of healing and compassion
Mhm.
before we might be ready to begin the journey of opening the heart to that person. And so I would probably advise like really coming back to compassion for ourselves. That said, even in the conceptual realm, acknowledging that hurt people tend to hurt people, right? If someone hurt us, it's probably because they've been hurt. And so if we can't feel compassion for them ourselves, maybe even just, again, planting the seed, it's just an invitation, it's a turning towards, it's a moving the needle. We don't have to feel it to intend it, but planting that seed of intention, even that like, may this person be held in the womb of compassion. Maybe I'm not the person to extend that womb of compassion towards them in this moment, but may they be in that divine womb of compassion, for the sake of healing of the whole, and even just to kind of, in a subtle way, like, intend that might be something to practice with.
Yeah. Well, a lot of wisdom there. Thanks. Thanks so much, Rebecca. And thanks for leading off the week. So friends, we'll end it here. I want to thank Pat Scala for sponsoring our practice again. And thanks to Jet Bachman for holding our space. Thanks to each of you for being here. Just a reminder, Mira Neshama Weil will be leading us tomorrow in practice. On Wednesday, we're welcoming Rabbi Lauren Henderson as our teacher from Atlanta, a wonderful mindfulness meditation teacher. Wednesday night, Thursday is first day of a 2-day Rosh Chodesh for Elul. And Jenna Tzedaka of At the Well will be joining us to lead us. I don't have an update about Sarah Waxman, but she's out on parental leave. So we'll get an update. So Jenna Tzedaka from At the Well will lead us on Rosh Chodesh Elul on Thursday, and I'll be here to lead us into Shabbat on Friday. So hope you can join us for any or all of those.